Hello class. This week I wanted to do a voiceover of the Writing the Behavior Plan PowerPoint because this part is A, so critical to the final assignment with your case study, but B, very critical to being able to successfully help children in your classroom. So I thought it would be worth it to, one, provide you with the PowerPoint, but also to follow up with a voiceover. So where are we now in the class? We have reached the top of our pyramid. So this intensive intervention portion of the pyramid, which you see in orange, is really about 5% of the children. So it's a very small amount of children who are still exhibiting their challenging behaviors despite all of the positive efforts you have made. So the teachers have addressed everything else on the pyramid. So they have, looking from the bottom, that effective workplace. They've created those strong relationships with the children and amongst each others. They have high quality environments that are set to reduce challenges and increase engagement in learning. They are teaching social emotional skills. They are targeting the children who maybe need a little bit more support. All of those things are happening, and there are children who still are unable to be successful. That's what the top of the pyramid is really most focused on, is those kiddos who really need that intensive intervention and support in order for them to be successful. So the process of implementing a behavior support plan is, first of all, to come up with a team. And the people on the team need to be the family members. It needs to be all of the teachers in the classroom, anybody who may be working with the child. Everybody needs to be on the same page. The center director should be involved, and potentially any experts or specialists who may be working with the child, maybe an OT or a therapist if they are involved, but everybody who has a stake on this child doing really well. The next step would be to do that functional assessment, which is what you all have been doing all semester through your ABC observations. You've been observing and collecting information on your kiddo as what are the triggers, what are the behaviors you're seeing, and then what are the responses to the child. Then you use that to develop your hypothesis statement, or otherwise your best guess as to what the function of the child's behavior is, which we covered that 2 weeks ago if you need to go back and refresh your memory on that. So your best guess on the function is what is now going to guide the behavior plan. So step 4, this is where we are. We're going to design that behavior support plan, and then we'll talk about how you implement, monitor, and evaluate the outcomes and go from there. So the purpose of a behavior support plan, there's really 2 main reasons for having a behavior support plan. The first one is that it is meant to help the child become successful. Right now, they are not successful in the classroom for whatever their reasons are. They are having a lot of difficulty handling these various situations that they're in. So the behavior plan is going to give them the tools they need to be successful in small doses so that they can build confidence, build skills, and be able to work themselves up to being productive members of the classroom. And secondly, it gives a prescribed plan to the teaching team. So I know when dealing with really challenging behaviors, it can just feel as if everything is out of whack. You don't know what to do. You're overwhelmed. This gives a plan. This tells you exactly what to do, how to respond, how not to respond, how to respond in this situation, and how to respond in this type of a situation. And it has everybody doing the same thing, which leads to consistency. And that is really, when it's focused around the correct function, this is the most effective way to be able to handle difficult behaviors. A few things to consider, though, is that a child may need more than one behavior plan in place to address maybe more than one function, because it is possible that a child has more than one function in their behavior, or different events throughout the day. So if they have a different plan for the different functions, maybe they need one plan to help them manage transition times. Maybe they need a different plan for circle time, and then maybe another plan for nap time. Or maybe they need a different plan for helping them learn how to request attention or request objects or items. So you might need more than one. For the purpose of this class, though, you're only going to need to write one behavior plan that's going to address the most dominant function that you have identified for the child. When you're doing this in real life, you want to start with what you think you can be most successful in making progress in right away, and then you can build from there. So here's what a behavior plan looks like, okay? So the top part, what you see in green, is the summary of the observations you have been doing. So the triggers are the summaries of the antecedents. The behaviors are the summary of the behaviors that you have observed, so the form of their behavior. And then the maintaining consequences are a summary of the consequences that have been occurring. And we call them maintaining consequences because they haven't helped yet, which means they are likely serving to maintain that consequence. What you see below in blue is the actual behavior plan. And there's 3 steps to this. There are prevention strategies, new skill or replacement skills, and then new responses. So this is the actual plan that gets written based on the observations that you have done. And you'll see there in yellow is the function. So the function needs to guide everything that we do. So if the function is gain, everything you do in your prevention strategies, the new skills that are being taught, and the new responses that the teaching team is going to use all have to be written with the function in mind. And as we go through this, you'll see how that will change based on the various functions. The other thing I want to point out is that the bottom part of the behavior plan directly correlates with the top plan. So the preventions, so those are the ways that you're going to make the events and the interactions that trigger the challenging behavior easier for the child to manage, okay, or to make some of these, essentially try to eliminate some of these behaviors. So the prevention is directly related to what are the triggers. So here's what's setting them off. So what can we do to try to prevent those triggers? In blue is the behaviors and the new skills. So what are the behaviors they are currently doing right now? Hitting, kicking, screaming, yelling, throwing. And what do we want them to do instead? What is the new skill that needs to be taught to the child in order for them to be successful? Again, still working around the function. And then lastly, here are the consequences that have been happening. They haven't been successful in stopping the behavior yet, so we need to relook at them. And when we're looking at our new responses, there are 2 pieces to this. So how are you going to respond when the child reverts back to those challenging behaviors? And then also, how are you going to respond when a child uses these new skills that they've been taught? We need to know exactly what to do in both of these situations. So let's start with prevention strategies, okay? So the prevention strategies are ways to make the events and interactions that trigger a challenging behavior easier for the child to manage, okay? So based on the different functions, here are some prevention strategy ideas. So for a child who is sensory focused, or the function is sensory, for these children you should avoid the stimulus that triggers the behavior. So maybe it's bright lights, it's loud noises, or maybe you need to provide a sensory stimulus before it's needed. So if a child is feeling like they need more sensory input, then you give it to them before they go looking for it. If the function is escape, right? So they're trying to get out of doing something that they don't want to do or they feel like they can't do, you can decrease the difficulty of the activity until the child builds the skills and then add it back up. Or you can provide a scheduled escape. So if you know this child really struggles going to circle, maybe you can offer them to do a puzzle near the circle center rather than having to participate. If it's attention-seeking behavior, you can provide them with an abundance of attention-seeking behavior on a regular basis. Schedule things that you do with them one-on-one. Have them be your little buddy. Whatever you can do to help give the child positive attention. And then lastly, if it's gain, you can use visual supports ahead of time to show them things like when they will get a turn, when they will get access to whatever it is that they're looking for. Here's some ideas. So you can see on here there are visual charts. You've got everything from a center time choice board where the child can go and choose where they want to go. You can limit this. So if you want them to have to pick one center, you can put that and a few others and tell them that they can do that and pick 1 or 2 more that they want to do. You can do first then boards, which this is really good when a child doesn't want to do something. So first you got to go to lunch, then we can go play. So using what they want to do as a reinforcer. A picture schedule, it can be really helpful for children as a prevention strategy. So even though you don't want to go to math, but if you look after that, then we're going to get to go and do X, Y, and Z. A wind chime is a good tool that can help, especially for sensory children, to trigger that a change is coming, a transition is coming, an expectation is coming, but it's a much calmer tool to use than flashing lights or putting on loud music. You can see here an example of a waiting board, so whose turn it is. So for a child who needs some support with waiting, this is an example for using the computer. Right now it's Adam's turn, next it will be Sarah's turn, and then it will be Noah's turn. And you can move the names up so the child can see how much closer they're getting to their turn. And then this other strategy with the popsicle sticks is one of my favorite strategies that I used to use when I was in the classroom, because you can use 2 popsicle sticks to give a visual to a child for how long they have to wait for something, or how long it'll be their turn, or how long until they can leave. So you can say in 2 popsicle sticks, you can leave, or in 2 more popsicle sticks, it will be your turn. And then however minutes later, you take 1 popsicle stick away and say 1 more popsicle stick and then it's your turn, or 1 more popsicle stick and then you can leave. And that shows them that they're almost there. And then you can remove that final popsicle stick to tell them it's your turn, or yes, you can get up and leave. And what's really great about popsicle sticks versus timers is that the teacher can control the length. So if you see that they're really struggling today, you can still use the popsicle sticks, excuse me, and move them quicker. Or you can, if the child is becoming more successful, you can spread out how long before you remove 1 popsicle stick and then the other. It's a really easy tool to use. It's teacher controlled, it's visual, and the child can pick up and understand that pretty quickly. Some other prevention strategies might be like some tools to help children learn how to line up. You can see the colored feet up there. That gives the teachers some flexibility in how children line up. So Joey, you're going to be on the orange feet, and Melissa, you are going to be on the blue feet, because maybe you need to split those 2 children up, for example. Things like the stop sign is a good visual. So these are some visuals that you can put up that can help children learn the expectations in the classroom without the teacher constantly having to tell them. You can see the picture to the right of that. Same thing in a circle area, having specific spots to help children give some personal space, or to decide who's going to sit next to who, or maybe a child needs to be next to an adult, or a child might sit next to a child who's a good role model. But it just gives the teacher a lot of opportunity to control the situation in a way that's not a lot of work on the teacher's part. Down below, you see a little boy with a squishy ball in his hand. So for those sensory kiddos, sometimes they just need that feeling of being able to get a sensory stimuli, and that might help a child to sit and be successful for longer. One of the things I hear a lot from people is, well, if I give one to one child, I have to give it to all the other children. That is not true. What is fair does not necessarily mean equal. It means we're giving every child the tool they need to be successful. And so that's something I want people to consider. It would be like me saying to somebody in my classroom, you can't wear your glasses unless everybody else in the classroom gets glasses too. Well, that would be ridiculous, because not everybody in the class needs those glasses, and that particular student now won't be successful without their glasses. So keep that in mind. And then lastly, you see over here a give me 5. So this might be just a quick visual. So you can, if you see a child struggling at circle, once they have learned what those 5 things might mean, you can just hold your hand up to give that visual to a child before they really struggle.